So up to now we have discussed that what is beta pleated burger and what are IG domains. Okay. Now we have discussed in detail what is the structure of IG domain. Okay. Now a very important point is this, that we will have to now understand that these structures, that is these are what, heavy chains, right? These are what, light chains, right? Okay, let me rub this part. So these parts, these portions, these bumps, that is what, IG superfamily bumps or IG domains. Okay, these IG domains have specialized names, that is what, CH1, CH2, CH3. Okay, these are specialized name, that is CH1, CH2 and CH3. So that means, suppose this is, you know, your this is suppose your, you know, bump. Okay, now listen. So I am not going to the details of every, you know, structure. Now listen. So this is what, heavy chain, right? This is what, nothing but heavy chain of what, heavy chain of antibody or immunoglobulin. Now listen, these are called constant heavy region 1, constant heavy region number 2, constant heavy region number 3. Clear? So these are constant heavy region number 1, constant heavy region number 2, constant heavy region number 3. Okay, and what are these? Variable heavy region. Clear? This is what, variable heavy region. So actually this should look like this. Okay, clear? This is your variable heavy region. Okay, now a very important point we need to understand here is this, that now listen, I will be drawing something very important now, but before that I want to ask you a very little question which is very important, that do you know what is hypervariable region? Do you know what is hypervariable region? What is hypervariable? Do you know what is hypervariable region? If you don't know, then you must understand this thing right now. Why? Because now listen, before I go into the details of this, you know, hypervariable region, the first thing we need to understand is this, that whatever be it, this hypervariable region is nothing but a specialized region in the variable region itself. Okay, it's a specialized region in the variable region itself. That means we are actually now going into the details of this portion only. We are now going into the details of this portion only. Okay, now listen, suppose this is your antibody. Now suppose this is your antibody and suppose this is your antigen. Okay, now I am drawing antigen in a big, you know, peculiar manner, but you will understand this, why I am drawing like this. This is what, this is your heavy chain. Okay, and this is your light chain. Okay, why I am drawing like ribbon you will understand later. Okay, okay, so this is what, now listen, this region is your what, this region is your hypervariable region. Now listen, antigen will actually fit here. Okay, antigen actually fits here in this region. Now listen, there has been a study which showed actually the antigen actually attaches not with the variable region but certain amino acid sequences of the variable region. Now listen with all your attention again. Actually, when we conducted a study, we actually understood that antigen never interacts with the whole variable region, okay, of antibody. It interacts with special sequences of amino acids within the variable region. Therefore, this variable region is actually what? This variable region is your what? antigen binding site. Okay, now listen with all your attention. The area, suppose this is the suppose this is the specialized area. Suppose this hole is what? Variable region. Now listen with all your attention. This hole is what? Your variable region. This hole is what? Your variable region. Now listen with all your attention. Now if we see, then we can easily look into this, that this antigen is actually interacting with this area of our what? Antibody, right? The antigen is only interacting with this area of our antibody, right? Now this area is having a special name. This area is called, this area is known by the name of, this area is known by the name of hyper variable region. This is called hypervariable region. Now listen with all your attention. You know what is the special name of hypervariable region? There are special names. There is actually a special name for hypervariable region. You know what is that? The special name for hypervariable region is, the special name for hypervariable region is, the special name for hypervariable region is complementary determining or complementarity determining region. Okay, the special name for hypervariable region is complementarity determining region, or CDRs. They are known also by their short form, that is CDR. Okay, now listen with all your attention. Actually there are 3 CDRs present in an antigen binding site. Now listen with all your attention. A very important point you need to understand is this. Now listen with all your attention. Suppose if I draw like this, this is what? Your one of the this is what? Your antibody. Now listen with all your attention. Important point we need to understand is this. Suppose this is your variable region. Now listen with all your attention. The variable light chain, this region have 3 CDRs. Have what? 3 CDRs, right? And the variable heavy chain also have 3 CDRs. That means in one of this portion, okay, this is called FAB. Okay, we'll talk about that later, don't worry, in this lecture. This is called FAB portion. Okay, don't call it as FAB. Okay, it's fragment antigen binder. Okay, but it is actually this particular portion alone cannot bind with antigen. Okay, I will talk about that later when we will talking about the structural differences when we treat this particular protein or antibody with different types of digestive enzymes. Okay, all proteases. Now listen with all your attention. So there are 3 CDRs present in what? Heavy chain. There are 3 CDRs present in your light chain. That means in a single Fab molecule, or sorry, I have actually in a single fragment antigen binder molecule, in a single FAB molecule, there are 3 CDRs and 3 CDRs in heavy chain and 3 CDRs in light chain. Okay, clear? This should be clear right now. Okay, that means in a single FAB there are 6 CDRs. Okay, there are 6 CDRs. Am I clear to everyone? There are 6 CDRs. Okay, clear? That means, now listen with all your attention possible on this earth. That means here also, in the hypervariable region, we'll get what? 3 CDRs in the what? 3 CDRs in the light chain and 3 CDRs in the heavy chain. That means here again 3 plus 3 means what? 6 and 6. That means what? There are actually 12 CDRs present. Now listen with all your attention. There are 12 CDR present in a normal antibody or a bivalent antibody. Clear? There are 12 CDRs present in a bivalent antibody. Okay? Okay, now what are CDRs? Okay, now listen with all your attention. I will be drawing the light chain. Okay, now, but I will be drawing the light chain with respect to beta barrels plate, beta barrels and beta pleated sheet like structure. That means I will draw or I will explain this CDRs when I will take out this light chain and I will draw the variable portion of this light chain. Okay, I will draw the variable portion of this light chain right now, like I have drawn the Ig domains. Okay, then you will understand what are CDRs. Okay, I am drawing this, it looks like p orbital. Okay, never mind, now listen. So this is the what? This is variable light chain, this is constant light chain. Okay, now listen with all your attention. CDRs are present in the variable light chain region. Clear? CDRs are present in variable light chain region. Now listen with all your attention. A very important point we need to understand here is this, that this variable region, now if suppose this is a protein and if we target this particular area, then you will understand. So this is what? Variable light chain. This is what? Variable light chain, right? This is variable light chain. Okay, now a very important point here we need to understand is this variable light chain actually is made up of amino acid. Now listen with all your attention. There are actually 12 beta pleated sheets. Sorry, there are actually 9 beta pleated sheets here. Now don't confuse this variable light chain with what? Don't confuse this variable light chain with Ig domains. Okay, it has nothing to do with Ig domains. So now listen with all your attention. This variable light chain actually have 9 beta pleated sheets. Okay, so we have got 9 beta pleated sheets, right? Oh no, we don't have to number like this. Now listen, before numbering this you will have to remember this simple thing: 672, 198, 345. That's it. This is 672, 198, 345. Okay, so you will have to remember this simple thing. Okay, you can remember 10-digit mobile number of your girlfriend, so you can do it. Okay, now listen, boyfriend oblique girlfriend. Okay, now listen, a very important point here we need to understand is this, that now listen with all your attention possible. Now a very important point here we need to understand is this, that we will have to connect head with the tail, right? That means we will have to connect 1 with 2, right? 1 with 2 and 2 with 3, 3 with 4, right? 4 with 5, 5 with 6, a long journey. 6 with 7, 7 with 8, again a long one. 8 with 9. Clear? Now listen, this is your NH2, this is your COOH. Okay. Now a very important point we need to understand, why do you think that I am actually trying to draw these things here? These are 3D structure obviously, but you need to understand, because you want to define what is hypervariable region or CDR or complementarity determining region. Now listen with all your attention. You know what are complementarity determining regions? Now listen, there are 3 complementary determining regions, right? You have already drawn that. You know what are these? This is your one of the complementarity determining region. This is your one of the complementarity determining region, okay? This is another complementarity determining region, and this is another complementarity determining region. This is another complementarity determining region. Now listen, so what are complementary determining regions? They are nothing but the loops which are coming out of the beta pleated sheets. Clear? Now listen with all your attention. So there are 3 CDRs, right? There are 3 CDRs. Okay, CDR1, CDR2, CDR3. Now another very important point I would like to add is that CDRs are not only present in your antibodies, they are also present in your TCR or T cell receptor. Clear? Okay, we'll talk about this in details, don't worry. So there are 3 types of CDRs. Now listen with all your attention. Scientists say that changes in the amino acid sequence of CDRs actually help the antibody to identify exactly the shape of antigens. Clear? Now listen. So CDR1, CDR2, CDR3, these are actually the 3 CDR or complementary determining region or hypervariable region, which actually helps in identifying the exact shape of what? Antigen. But a very important point you need to understand is this: among these 3 CDRs, the first point we need to understand is this: the third CDR, that is CDR3, is the most variable. CDR3 is the most variable. Therefore, in your books you will get the diagrams. In your books you will get diagrams like this. In the x-axis we are presenting residue. Residue means what? Amino acid sequence. And here we are presenting the variability. Why we are actually presenting residue on the x-axis? Simply because depending on the residue, variability increases or decreases. That means residue is the independent variable. If x equals to y, that means x is what? Residue or amino acid residue. Now listen with all your attention. If you open your book right now, you will see these things, some graphs like this, okay? You will see again like this. Obviously these diagrams are not up to the scale, but can you actually tell that which is having? Now listen, suppose the red one is actually CDR 1, the blue one is actually CDR2, the blue one is actually having actually the graph of CDR2, and the violet one is actually the graph for CDR3. Now can you tell me, just looking at these graphs, that which is the most variable region? Now listen, variability is presented on the y-axis, right? That means here the variability is highest. In the CDR3 portion, variability is highest. That means what? CDR3 is the most variable of them all. Okay. Now, if you want to really see this particular graph, a graph will be appearing on your screen. Those who are watching the live video, and those who are actually attending the class, I will be showing the graph right now. Okay. So now we know what is hypervariable region or complementarity determining region, right? Which is used for binding antigen. Now listen with all your attention. Now we will be dealing with a very, very important topic, that is proteolytic digestion of antibodies. Okay. Proteolytic digestion of antibodies. Listen, actually, whenever you want to study a protein, at first you break the protein into smaller fragments. Clear? Because smaller fragments are easier to crystallize. Why I am talking about crystallization? Because they will study the protein when they will be studying in detail the X-ray crystallography of that protein. That's it. That means why they want to break the protein? This is because of the fact that each and every small protein is way more easier to crystallize, which is one of the most fundamental requirement of X-ray crystallography. Okay. See the X-ray crystallography video if you want to learn more about X-ray crystallography. Okay, you have already learned that. Okay. Now, that means in earlier days, what scientists did is that they actually studied this protein after digesting with enzymes. Now listen, what was their technique? Suppose this is your suppose this is your antibody. Suppose this is your antibody, okay? Now, what was the first question scientists was trying to answer? Scientists were trying to answer, that is, which portion binds with antibody? That's it. The second question they wanted to answer is this, that which one helps in effector response, okay? So they were confused whether this portion helps in antibody binding or this portion helps in antibody binding. Therefore, what they did is, they actually cleaved this portion. And they tried to add antigen after that, and they after that understood that this portion binds with antigen. Okay, that is very easy in the experiment. But before you can understand this, you will have to answer me a very important question. Why do you think they have used only pepsin or papain? In every book, if you open, you will get pepsin or papain. Why? Simple answer. Because before the description of the functionality of a protein, what scientists does is they actually try to find out the sequence of amino acid in a protein. Most important thing what scientists did is they actually tried to read the amino acid sequence first. That's it. They wanted to read the amino acid sequence first. Why? Because if they somehow can understand the amino acid sequence, they will be able to know what are the vulnerable points or vulnerable attack areas of that protein, so that they can actually cut that protein with the help of protease. Now, what they came up with is they actually came up with a very important solution, that is, two most important proteins or proteases are available which can actually break the amino acid sequence of antibody. Now, how they know the amino acid sequence? Mass spectrometry is the best answer. Okay. A very important point we need to understand here is this, that what was their motive? They wanted to know which portion binds with antibody. That's it. How did they do that? They actually wanted to cut the portions so that they can crystallize the protein, and so that they can get a structure of particular area of the antibodies which binds with the antigen. That's it. This was their two motives. For that they used proteases, so that they can cut the smaller portions so that they can cut the entire protein into smaller portions, so that they can easily crystallize those smaller portions, which is the functional units. Okay, they can identify the functional units and they can crystallize the functional units. Okay, but a very important point we need to understand is this, that what are those two important proteins or proteases which helps in the converting this whole antibody into segments. Now listen with all your attention. There are actually two proteoses which are way more important than you think. Number one, pepsin. Number 2, papain. Okay, number 1 pepsin, number 2 papain. Now let us talk about pepsin first. Okay, let us talk about pepsin first. Now what is pepsin? We already know that our body produces pepsin. Okay, and every digestive tablet contains pepsin. Okay, that means what? That means it is very much easily crystallizable. That's it. Okay, now listen with all your attention. Pepsin, where pepsin attacks is actually pepsin attacks in a very much now listen, where pepsin attacks, now listen with all your attention. Pepsin attacks in this region. Pepsin attacks in this region. Okay, so after digestion, what we can expect is we will be getting these two products. Okay, okay, and this is your what? So this is your what? One of the product of your pepsin digestion. Okay, another product of your pepsin digestion is this, right? Another product of your pepsin digestion is this, right? Okay, so these are your products of what? Pepsin digestion. Okay, now listen with all your attention. If this is your concept about immunology, then you should kill yourself. If this is your concept about immunology, you should kill yourself. Why? You will not be getting this portion. What you will get, you will get peptide fragments. That means pepsin will attack again this portion and it will convert this portion into fragments, small fragments. That means you will not be getting anything like this. You will be getting peptide fragments, not fragments, fragments. Okay, you will be getting peptide fragments. That's it. And this, now listen, what is the name of this portion? FAB, right? All of you are wrong. Again, another thing, this is not FAB, this is called FAB2 fragment. Okay, this is called FAB2 fragment. That's it. Not okay, clear? So now listen with all your attention. A very important point you need to understand is this, that this portion, that is FAB2, this portion have antigen binding capability. This portion have antigen binding capability, or ABC, antigen binding capability. This portion FAB2, clear? Now we will be talking about the proteolytic cleavage or proteolytic damage done by papain. Okay, so let us convert this pep into papa. Okay, actually papain comes from papaya. It's a it's an enzyme which is present in papaya. Therefore it is required for many studies of protein like this one. Therefore it is called papain. Okay, protein present in papaya, that's why papain. Okay, Okay, so now we will be talking about the damage done by papain. Okay, now let us talk about that. Now listen with all your attention. So when papain attacks antibody, the site of attack of papain is different. The site of attack for papain is actually this. Okay. The site of attack for papain is this. Okay. That means papain actually attacks above this particular disulfide bridge. Now listen, when papain attacks, that means this disulfide bridge is now intact. Now when this disulfide bridge is intact, this portion having an intact disulfide bridge is called FC portion, because this portion can crystallize actually. Okay, so this is called FC portion. Why FC? FC stands for fragment crystallizable. Fragment crystallizable. Now listen, these portions are actually called FAB. So there are two FAB portions. Now listen, when papain attacks here, then this bond and this bond is getting disrupted. That means you will be getting what? These two portions, right? These two portions. Now listen with all your attention possible. A very, very important point you need to understand here is this, that this FAB portion does not bind to an antigen. Never binds to an antigen. Clear? This FAB portion never binds with an antigen. Now listen, this FAB stands for fragment antigen binder or fragment antigen binding. Clear? It is known by the name of fragment antigen binding. Clear? Okay. So now you know how different proteases actually, help in the study of antibody structure, right? Clear? Now we will be talking about antibody types. Okay, now listen, whenever we are talking about types of antibody, now you must understand this thing very carefully. Whenever we are talking about types of antibody, you must understand that you will have to remember this word, okay? This sequence, GAMED. Clear? GAMED. Now this G stands for, there are actually 5 types: IG, G, IgA, IgM, IgE and IgD. Now listen with all your attention. So there are actually 5 types of antibody. Now listen, these 5 types of antibodies are called actually, these are called isotypes. Now listen with all your attention. So what are isotypes? What do you mean by isotypes? Now listen with all your attention. Isotype are actually antibody which are present in a person but they are different. Now listen, that means IgG is different with respect to IgA and IgA is different with respect to IgM. That means what? That means each and every Ig or immunoglobulin or antibodies, which are isotypes, they are actually different. Now listen, what is the difference in these antibodies? What is the difference? Don't tell me that they perform different functions. I know that, but the basic difference between these 5 antibodies are actually in the amino acid sequence of their heavy chain. Clear? That means isotypes are they are named by differences in amino acid sequence of heavy chain. Okay, clear? So this should be clear first. Now listen, so what is the basic difference? Now listen, this is your heavy chain, right? Okay, now listen with all your attention. So this is your disulfide bond, this is your disulfide bond, and these are your disulfide bond between what? Ig domains, right? In the Ig domains, these are your disulfide bonds. Okay, clear? Now a very important point you need to understand is this: when we are talking about IgG, now listen with all your attention. When you are talking about IgG, the very important point you need to understand is this: that when you are talking about IgG is the most abundant. It is the most abundant Ig. It is the most abundant Ig. Okay, clear? It is the most abundant Ig. That means in serum it is present in almost around 13.4. Why it is the most abundant Ig? Because in serum it is present almost in 13.4 milligram per ml. So this is the concentration of IgG in serum, which is the highest. After that, the concentration of IgA is more, which is around 3.4 mg per ml. Okay, now listen with all your attention. How do you distinguish between IgG, IgA, IgM, IgE and IgD? Now listen with all your attention. There are subtle differences in the heavy chains of what? The heavy chains of these antibodies. Now listen, there are many there are many heavy chains. Now listen, there are actually many heavy chains which is produced by different types of procedures. We'll talk about that later, but right now we need to talk about this thing. Now listen again. Okay, thank you. So this is your Ig, this is your heavy chain, this is light chain, this is your function. Okay, now listen with all your attention. The first Ig we will be talking about is IgG. Okay, now listen, in IgG the heavy chain is known by the name of gamma. Okay, is known by the name of gamma. That means these are what? These are gamma chains, okay. These are gamma chains, okay. These are what? These are gamma chains, okay. Now, so there are actually two gamma chains present here, okay. Clear? Now, important point we need to understand is this: in all these, antibodies, so in IgG, the heavy chain is actually called gamma, right? Now, remember, with all your attention, we'll talk about light chain later, okay. Now, what is the function of IgG? What is the function of IgG? There is something called mucosal cells or mucosa or mucosal cells, you know that? Now listen, IgG actually helps in mucosal immunity, okay? Clear? Okay. Now, we have finished with IgG. Now, then we will talk about IgA, right? Now, in case of A, the heavy chain is made up of alpha. Heavy chain is made up of alpha. Clear? Now listen, what is the function of IgG? Now, sorry, IgA. Now, the very important point you need to understand is this, that IgA is the first line of barrier in case of, body secretions. Now listen, in every body secretion, IgA is present. Whether it is sweat or whether it is your intestinal secretion, IgA is present in small amount or large amount, okay? Okay. Body secretion related immunity. Clear? Okay. Now we will be talking about this master thing that is known by the name of IgM, right? GAMED. IgM. The heavy chain of IgM is actually made up of a protein called mu chain. Mu. That's why M for mu, M for IgM. Okay. A for alpha, A for A. Okay. G for gamma. That's why these are. Now listen. What is the most important thing about IgM? Now listen. You know the difference between IgM and IgG? Now listen. Suppose a bacteria now enters your body. Suppose if you are watching this video, now your bacteria suppose enters your body. Now one bacteria enters your body. Now listen with all your attention. Then and there IgG will be produced. Not then and there, actually after some days IgG will be produced. But after some days, after more and more days, with the passage of this infection, IgM will be produced. That means for the first exposure of any antigen, IgG are produced at large amount. But with the passage of time, IgM concentration increases. Therefore, when you have an allergy or when you have an infection, doctor will say to go for IgG-IgM test. Why doctor is saying that? Because doctor wants to know that if the concentration of IgG is high, then it is nothing but a new infection. Okay? It is in the earliest phase. But if he finds that IgM concentration is high, that means you are actually hiding something, or you don't know. That is, this infection was present for a long time in your body, which was which was according to him was unnoticed by you or your immune system. But IgM concentration increases means what? That means IgG has actually failed and IgM actually takes control over that. Okay. Okay. Now listen with all your attention. What is the function of IgM? It's a B cell antigen. It's a B cell antigen receptor. Okay. Now what do you mean by this? Now listen. Do you remember that what I said? That there are two types of antibodies. One which is secreted by the B cell or plasma cell, and one which is present on the surface. Do you remember that? Now listen. Suppose this is your B cell. Okay. Suppose this is your B cell. There will be some antibodies which are present on the surface of this B cell. Now these antibodies are actually IgM. These antibodies are actually what? IgM. Okay. These antibodies are actually what? IgM. Clear? These antibodies are IgM. They are what? They are IgM antibodies. Clear? They are IgM antibodies. Okay. Clear? Now a very important point you need to understand is this, that that IgM is having a peculiar thing. What is that? IgM is actually a pentamer. You know that. IgM is a pentamer, right? But remember this for your entire life. Those antibodies which are present on the B cell, those antibodies which are present on the B cell as B cell receptors or B cell antigen receptors, they are actually monomers. Remember this for your entire life. Those antigens which are present on the B cell, though they are IgM, but they are present as monomers, not pentamers. Clear? Okay, we'll talk about that later, don't worry. There are J chains and all, everything. Okay, now we will be talking about IgE. You know IgE? What is the role of IgE? What is the role of IgE? The heavy chain of IgE is called epsilon, okay? The heavy chain of IgE is called epsilon chain. Now listen with all your attention. IgE mediates allergic reaction. It mediates allergic reaction. That means whenever you have an allergy or something like that, there are 4 types of allergy. Whenever the doctor will suspect that there is an allergy, suppose you are going to a doctor and you are saying that you are sneezing and coughing for the rest of your days, and before you say that, you are coughing and sneezing in front of the doctor. That means what? Doctor will no doubt tell you to go for an IgE check. Okay? Why? Because it mediates allergic reaction. Clear? It mediates allergic reaction. Okay? Now the next and the most important, one of the most important is IgD. Very important point you need to understand is this, that the heavy chain of IgD is delta. Okay? Now you know what is the peculiarity of this IgD? IgD can also be a receptor. IgD can also be a receptor for B cell. That means they also acts as antigen receptor. Clear? They also acts as an antigen receptor. Okay? Now, why I told you at first that these light chains, we will talk about that later, because remember this for your entire life. In every immunoglobulin, the light chain can be lambda or kappa. 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 Clear? Now a very important point you need to understand is this. Suppose this is our antigen. Suppose this is our antigen. So this is suppose our antigen. You know that very well. Now listen with all your attention. So these are light chains, right? These blue colored ones are light chains, right? These blue colored ones are what? Our light chains. Now listen, either these 2 light chains will be made up of lambda chain or it will be made up of kappa chain. But don't you ever think that one chain will be made up of lambda and other will be made up of kappa. It will never happen, okay? Clear? Clear? Okay. Now we will be talking about, a very interesting fact, that is IgM and IgA actually are very much different. Why Because IgM, IgA, they are actually pentamer and dimer respectively. Now listen with all your attention. What do you mean by that? Now, suppose IgM is actually a pentamer. What is the advantage of this? Something called avidity and affinity. We'll talk about that right now. What is avidity and affinity? What is the difference? And what is valency of an antigen? Valency means how many number of antigens it can actually, attach. Now, what is affinity and avidity? Now, before we talk about the pentameric nature of IgM, we must talk about, affinity and avidity of antibody. Now listen, if you really want to know what is affinity and avidity, the difference, you must first understand that suppose this is a protein. Okay, suppose this is a protein. Now listen with all your attention. Now this protein is actually held together into a tertiary structure by many forces like hydrogen bonding, covalent interactions, right? Non-covalent interaction, ionic interactions, many other things, not ionic interactions, sorry. Now listen with all your attention. A very important point we need to understand with respect to affinity is this. Affinity is the strength of a single binding site of an antibody. Now listen with all your attention possible. Affinity is the strength of a single binding site of an antibody. Clear? Of a single binding site of an antibody. So now you know what is affinity. Now listen with all your attention. A very important point we need to understand here is this, that suppose this is a bacteria. Suppose this is a bacteria, and this bacteria is having an antigen here. Okay? Clear? Now listen with all your attention possible. You know that suppose if we, if we magnify the antigen, suppose this is our antigen, okay? Suppose this is our antigen, you will find that there are specialized regions in an antigen. There are specialized regions in antigen to which antibodies actually bind. There are specialized region in an antigen to which antibodies specially bind. These regions in an antigen is called epitope. Okay? And what is paratope? Let me clear this concept forever. Paratope is almost equivalent to CDRs. Okay? That's it. Okay? Now, what is epitope? Epitopes are specialized regions in antigen to which antibodies bind. Now, listen with all your attention. Suppose this is our antigen and to this antibodies bind. So, these are antibodies. This is what? FC portion. These are FAB portions. Now, listen with all your attention. To which, now listen. That means the epitopes are actually the center, or the place where antibodies will bind in an antigen, right? Now, listen with all your attention. Very important point we are going to discuss here. Now, affinity is the forces or the quality with which single antigen binds here. Single antigen binds to a what? A single epitope. But avidity, what is avidity? Now listen. Suppose this antigen, I am again drawing this antigen here. Suppose this antigen actually have four epitopes. So there will be 4 antibodies, right? Now listen. So there will be 4 antibodies. Clear? So there can be 4 antibodies here. Now listen with all your attention. The strength with which each and every antibody is attaching to these epitopes, this strength taken together is called avidity. The strength with which every antibody binds with a specific epitope taken together in an antigen is called avidity. Clear? That's it. That means if you are measuring the strength of a single antibody with respect to a single epitope, then it is affinity. If you are considering the whole antigen together and multiple epitopes, then it is avidity. That's it. Now listen with all your attention possible. Now listen. Why IgM and IgA are different, This is because IgM and IgA are actually not, single antibodies. They are collection of antibodies which are joined by J chains. Clear? Now listen, what is IgM? Okay. IgM is actually a pentameric antibody. Okay. Suppose this is your J chain, or J means joining chain, okay. J chain, okay. J chain. And this is what? These are your IgM, right? Clear? So this is what? A pentameric IgM molecule. Okay, this is an IgM molecule. Clear? Now, how to draw a IgA? It's very simple. How to draw a IgA? Clear? That's it. This is how you draw a IgA. Clear? So this is IgA, right? This is IgA. Okay. Clear? Now listen. So this is what? J chain, right? This is J chain, and this is IgM. This is IgA molecule. Okay. Now listen with all your attention. Whose affinity will be more? You cannot say that. But whose avidity will be more? Now listen. More the number of paratopes, or more the number of ciliars, more will be what? More the number of paratopes, more will be, in general, more will be avidity. That's it. But the affinity, single epitope binding, interaction, you cannot study that before you know the real structure of ciliars. Okay. But you can actually guess that IgM will have higher avidity. Now we will be seeing something really special, that is the structure of antibodies which are present on the membrane of B cell. Okay, they are what? IgA or IgD or IgM. Now listen, if any antibody is present on the membrane of a B cell, then it has a special characteristic. Now listen, suppose this is your B cell, okay, and suppose this is your antibody. Clear? Suppose this is your antibody. Now listen, I will be magnifying this area. So that you can understand what is going on in here. Okay, clear? So I will be drawing this here. Now listen, suppose this is your cell membrane area where antibodies are bound. This is what? Phospholipid bilayer. Now listen with all your attention. Suppose if I now just omit this portion, now this is what? So this is, suppose I will be drawing the heavy chain with violet. Okay. Now listen. Then I will be drawing the light chain with blue pen, okay, or red pen, okay. Now listen with all your attention possible. There is an important difference here. You know what is the difference? In case of antibodies which were, about to get secreted, we saw there were how many, Ig domains? There were 2 Ig domains, but in case of those antibodies which are tethered to the membrane, okay, they have 3 Ig domains instead of 2. Clear? They have 3 Ig domains instead of 2. Clear? So this is what? This is variable region, right? This is variable region. This is variable region. This is constant region, and you know the rest. Okay? Clear? Now listen with all your attention. So this is what? This is constant heavy 1, this is constant light 1, or constant light area, sorry, not 1, 2. Now listen, this is CH2, this is CH3, this is CH4, okay. Same goes for this particular section. So this is the structure of antibodies. So this is the structure of antibodies associated with B cell membrane. Okay. Never ever think that these antibodies are same. That means those antibodies which are about to get secreted, they are same as that of what? As that of membrane bound antibodies which are present on the B cell membrane. Clear? Now we will be talking about antigenic determinants. Now what are these? Now what do you mean by this particular statement, antigenic determinants? Now listen. Suppose you have a protein or carbohydrate or lipid, and suppose that particular protein, carbohydrate or lipid is an antigen. Now that means antibody will bind, right? Now listen with all your attention. There is a chance that if you denature this antibody, denature this antigen, then it may or may not bind to the particular antibody. Clear? But suppose the antigen is a carbohydrate, then if you denature also, then the carbohydrate have a fairly good chance for its binding capacity with the antibody. That means what? We are actually talking about antigen antibody interaction, okay, with respect to carbohydrate, protein and fat antigens. Okay, now listen, whenever we are talking about antigenic determinants, we will first talk about conformational determinants. What is this? Conformational determinants. What is this? We'll talk about that first. What is conformational determinants? Now listen with all your attention. Conformational determinants are actually a very important part of our immunology. Okay, what is conformational determinants? Now listen, suppose this is an antibody. Clear? Okay, suppose this is an antibody. Now this antibody have a CDR like this. Okay, now listen with all your attention. Suppose this is a protein, okay, and this protein have this specialized area which can interact with CDR. Specialized area, okay, which can interact with CDR. Okay, clear? Here again you will have to draw this protein. I cannot draw it. Okay, it's really peculiar. Now listen. Suppose this protein have different types of in this loop there are different kinds of interactions, non-covalent interactions, disulfide interaction. Now listen. If you hit this protein now, then what will happen is this protein will now become a linear shape of something like this, right? That means all the non-covalent interaction and all the other types of interaction which makes up its tertiary or secondary structure will be destroyed after hitting. That means what? This linear structure will now fit this. Will this linear structure now fit with? Will this linear structure now fit with Will this linear structure now fit with the CDR? No. That means this particular protein has lost its antigenicity or antigenity after hitting. That means this is called conformational determinant. That means this particular protein, this particular site will be antigenic when its conformation is intact. But if you disrupt the conformation, then the conformational determinants of this particular area which makes it antigenic will be destroyed. Okay. Now listen with all your attention. This particularly occurs when the antigenic portion is present in a protein, right? You cannot denature a lipid, right? You can denature, but you cannot denature a carbohydrate, but you can denature a protein, but it's really tough. Clear? So conformational determinants are present in proteins, okay, and they are destroyed by heating or something like that. Clear? Now what are linear determinants? Now we will be talking about linear determinants. Linear determinants. So what are these? Suppose you have a protein and these have a specialized area which can actually bind to an antigen. Clear? But there is another area which tries to bind to an antigen, but it cannot because it is actually guarded by these protein helix. Okay, now listen with all your attention. Suppose this is an antibody, okay, Clear? So this is an antibody. Now listen with all your attention possible on this earth. So suppose this is an antibody. Now listen, what will happen is this. Suppose if you denature this protein, then what will happen after denaturation? If this happens, that this determinant portion of this particular protein remains intact, but another beautiful thing happens. What is that, you know? Suppose another beautiful thing happens, that is, if this, you know, red area also opens up due to denaturation, then what will happen is this, you can actually get a polyvalent interaction of antibodies. Okay, you can actually get a polyvalent interaction of antibodies right now. You can actually get a polyvalent interaction of antibodies. Okay, now listen. Clear? So this is, so another, you know, epitope actually has opened due to, you know, another epitope has opened due to, you know, heating. So this is called linear determinant. That means when the particular protein is in a conformational state, you will get only one epitope, suppose, and if you, you know, denature the protein and if you make it a linear, then you will get two determinants. Clear? So this is linear determinant conformations. Okay, this is neo-antigenic determinant. Now we will be talking about neo-antigenic determinant. Now it's very, very simple. Okay, what is neo-antigenic determinant? What is neo-antigenic determinant? What do you mean by neo? Neo-antigenic determinants. What is neo? Neo means new. That means, suppose this is a protein. Suppose this is a protein. Okay. Now listen with all your attention. There is no, you know, determinant, or there is no, you know, epitope in this particular protein to which an antibody can bind. Okay. Suppose, but after heating or after, you know, treating this protein with another, you know, protease. Suppose if you break it. Okay. Suppose there are two peptide fragments now. Suppose if you break from here. Okay, if you break from here, then what will happen is this, you will get two, you know, fragments here, right? From here we have broken everything. Now listen with all your attention. What will happen is this, there may be an antibody which can actually bind to this surface, but when it was associated with the protein, it was impossible for this particular segment to bind with an antibody because of what? Because of other interactions maybe. So that means if you disrupt the protein with a protease, or if you cut the protein with a protease, then what will happen is this, you may get an antigenic site or an epitope to which an antibody can bind. So this is called neo-antigenic determinant. Why it is called neo? That means earlier it was not present, but after treating with some chemicals, you can get a new antigenic surface. Clear? So these are the three, you know, determinant, or so these are the three, you know, ways by which you can actually interact an antibody with another, you know, antigen or epitope, antigenic site or epitope. Okay, so this is how, you know, antigen antibody interacts. Okay, obviously I am not talking about the kinetics. We'll talk about kinetics in details in later classes. Clear? Now we will be talking about a very, very important topic. Okay, that is the concept of isotype, idiotype and allotype. Okay, concept of isotype, allotype and idiotype. Now these are the most confusing portion in an immunology class, these three. If you ask anyone without referring to any book, if you can tell anyone that please explain to me these 3 points, probably he will be confused, he or she will be confused. But from today onwards you will not be confused about these 3 particular things. Why? Now listen, what is isotope? Isotopes are, now listen, isotopes are, all the classes of immunoglobulins present in a single species. Now, we are what? We are what? We are humans. So, therefore, we have got 5 classes. G, A, M, E, D, GAMED, right? IG, G, IgA, IgM, IgE, IgD. So, these are what? Our isotypes. Now, listen with all your attention possible. What is allotype? Explain to me what is allotype. Those who are watching the video, they should also try to explain. So, explain to me what is allotype. Now, listen with all your attention. It's not easy for you people to define it. Now, listen. So, can you tell me what is allotype? Now, listen. It's very, very important for you people to understand what is allotype. Suppose this is human. Yes, I am drawing this because Black Lives Matter. Therefore, I am drawing it with black. Okay. Now, listen. So, this is suppose person number 1 having crazy hairs, unlike me. Clear? So, this is person number A, suppose. Person A. Okay. Now, listen. And suppose this is another person. You know that all the humans belong to same species, right? Thank God you are educated enough to understand and reply. Okay? Clear? So, this is person B. Now, listen with all your attention. If we introduce this antibody from this person's body to this person's body, then what will happen? Yes, everybody knows that then antibodies will be produced against this, right? Now, listen with all your attention. Now, suppose this person's body will now react and it will produce antibodies, right? And it will produce antibodies. Now, my question is, do you know where this antibody will bind? Where this person's antibody, suppose this person B is producing, red colored antibody. Now, my question is, where this will red colored antibody bind? Now, listen with all your attention. Suppose this is the person A's antibody and this is person B's antibody. Now, listen, where it will bind? Tell me. In this region, or in this region? That means in the variable region, in the constant region, where this red colored antigen will bind, antibody will bind. Now, listen with all your attention. Every human being have subtle differences in their constant region of antibodies. Every human being have subtle differences in their what? In their what? Heavy chain. Subtle amino acid differences. So, single nucleotide polymorphism, SNPs in their what? Constant region. Okay. That means what? These antibodies now will detect. These antibodies will now detect specialized area these antibodies will now detect specialized area, okay, will now detect specialized area in the heavy chain of this antibody which was introduced. Now, listen, when person A's antibody was introduced in person B's body, then anti-person A antibody will be produced in person B. This anti-person A antibody will be produced and this will bind with heavy chain of what? This will bind with heavy chain of what? This will bind with heavy chain of antibody of person A, right? Now, listen, this antibody is now called anti-allotypic antibody. This antibody is called, this antibody will now be called anti-allotypic antibody. Okay. Now, listen with all your attention. These area which have subtle differences with respect to this antibody of this person, this area is called allotope, not epitope but allotope. Okay, this is called allotope. Clear? Okay, so you now know what is allotype. Allotypes are antibodies which are produced when when an antibody is introduced into another person of same species, or when an antibody is introduced into an organism of same species, right? So this is allotype. Now listen with all your attention. What is idiotype? Idiotype is the antibody which is produced when you are introducing an antibody to a related organism. That means what? Suppose you are, in this case, this whole thing remains same. Now listen. Suppose in this case, the person A is your father. Person A is your father, and you are person B. Okay, you are person B. Okay, clear? So this is my name. Okay, now listen. So suppose my father is actually, donating or giving me this surprise that he is actually giving me one antibody. Now I also have subtle differences in my my father also have subtle differences. If my father actually gives me an antibody in my body, if he introduces his antibody in my body, then the most important thing you need to understand is this: my father and me will have same type of heavy chains. Okay, no doubt about this. We will have similar types of Ig domains, no doubt about this. But my father and me have subtle difference in the variable region of heavy and light chains. That means, suppose this is your antibody. Suppose this is your antibody, right? So this is your what? Antibody. So this is your antibody. Now listen with all your attention. If my father is donating this particular antibody into my, or if my father is introducing this antibody into my body, then my body will actually create anti-father antibodies. Okay, anti-father antibodies. That means my immune system will try to create antibodies against my father's antibody, right? Clear? Now listen with all your attention. Now my question is, where this antibody, this is my antibody, this is my father's. Okay, now my question is, where will this antibody bind with my father's antibody? Now listen, will it be this site, will it be this site, or this is what? Variable region. Now listen with all your attention. My antibody will bind with the either variable region or constant region of, my antibodies will bind with either the light chain or heavy chain of variable region. This is what? Variable region. This is what? Variable region. Now listen with all your attention. My antibodies will bind with either light chain of variable region or heavy chain of variable region. Clear? Clear to everyone? Okay. So that means if I draw it again, so suppose this is my father's antibody. So this is what? This is our variable region, right? This is what? This is our variable region. That means, suppose, and this is my antibody. Okay, suppose this is my antibody. Okay, now my antibody may bind to this site, that is the variable region of light chain or variable region of heavy chain. Clear? Now these antibodies which are directed against my father's antibody, these are called anti-idiotypic antibody. Clear? So what is allotypic antibody? What is idiotypic antibodies? Okay, what is okay, clear? So whenever you are transferring, suppose you want blood. Now a very important question here, which will appear in your many MCQs. Now suppose if you want blood transfusion, what will happen? You will have allotypic, anti-allotypic antibodies or anti-idiotypic antibodies in your body. Whenever blood transfusion occurs, production of antibody obviously is there, which is induced by your immune system. Now my question is, what type of antibody you will face, anti-idiotypic or anti-allotypic? Now listen, before you answer this, laugh. Many people are saying anti-idiotypic, many people are saying anti-allotypic. Now listen, before you answer this, laugh at least twice, because are you sure that your father and you share actually similar blood groups? No, right? That means you will have to go to a blood bank, and from there you will have to fetch some blood, right? Now listen, do you know that person? Do you know that person who has given you the blood? Probably no, right? Now listen with all your attention. That means whenever you are undergoing a blood transfusion, then you will develop anti-allotypic antibodies. You will always develop anti-allotypic antibodies because that person is of same species, but he is not related to you. Clear? He is genetically not related to you. That's it for now. We will be discussing a whole lot of immunology after this. Okay, but for the time being, this is it. So this was your antibody class.